Hi, my name is Jonathan Taylor. I am a Title IX advisor. I've been working and advocating in the Title IX space for about 15 years now. And in this video, I'm going to tell you some things that you need to know before you go into an interview with an investigator if you have been accused of some form of sexual misconduct through the school's student conduct or Title IX office. So at this point, you should have received a document called a Notice of Allegations, letting you know that you have been accused. It could also be called something like a Notice of Investigation or a Notice of Formal Complaint. Not long after that, the investigator is going to contact you and ask you to schedule a meeting, usually remotely over Zoom or Microsoft Teams. And it's hard to overstate how vulnerable you are at this stage because you only know the minimal amount of information that the school has provided. You don't know what all the accuser has told the school or what evidence the accuser has submitted. You don't know whether the school has interviewed any witnesses, what all those witnesses may have said. You could be called into an interview where they put up a screenshot of a text message on the screen from 2 years ago, and they don't give you any context of what happened before or after that screenshot. And you could be asked to give them your version of events, again, not knowing what all your accuser has told the school. And they can do the same thing with a recording or a social media post or a Snapchat post that you thought was deleted, but someone screenshotted it with something that someone said that you did or something that someone heard that someone else said that you did, and so forth. So some of the most dangerous moments are when you don't know what you don't know. And any actions that you do take could change the course of your life. But nonetheless, you are forced into a situation where you must act regardless. That's when you have to be extremely careful and you have to get help. And that's true in these cases, in life in general, because what you say in these interviews could change the course of the entire case. Just keep in mind, it's very easy to add statements. You can always add statements later, but it's very difficult to take them back. So for example, even if you email the investigator after the interview and you say, yeah, I said this during the interview, and then over the weekend I got to thinking about it some more and I remembered it better, and this is actually what happened. Most of the time, the investigator is not going to simply replace your previous statement with your new statement when they write up the investigation report, which they will later pass on to the decision maker. They're instead going to write up that you initially said one thing and then later you said another thing. And even if you made your initial statement in good faith and later corrected it in good faith, a decision maker, when making a credibility determination, deciding who is more believable, could assign less weight to your statements because you had trouble remembering the details of the alleged incident and your accuser's recollection seemed more consistent and thus more credible. All of this is why the most critical time to hire an advisor is before the first interview with the investigator. Now, for example, when people hire me to be their advisor before the first interview, over 80% of the time we're able to get a positive outcome. What does that mean? Usually it means either the client is found not responsible for the allegations, which is the school's way of saying not guilty, or we're able to resolve the complaint in other ways without you being found responsible so that you can continue your education. So if you don't have an advisor at this point and the investigator is reaching out to you to schedule an interview, what you need to do is push back that interview for as long as you need to hire one. And if they won't let you push back that interview to hire an advisor, contact us, let me know, because there are federal regulations that provide good cause for extensions such as these. And one of those good causes is that the regulations explicitly mention is the absence of an advisor. Additionally, if you are the subject of a Title IX investigation, you have the right to an advisor of your choice attend any meeting with the school that discusses those allegations. And you never want to meet with the school alone to discuss the allegations, because if you say one thing that happened during the meeting and they say another thing happened during the meeting, it's going to be very difficult to convince the school to take your word over theirs. Now, as advisors, we can do many things to help you prepare you for that interview with the investigator. The first thing that we'll do is we'll look at the evidence that's currently available, as well as any official communication the university has sent to you, and we'll use that to plan out a general strategy for your defense. We'll look at not only what we can do over the next few days or the next week, but how we can set you up for success down the line. Some of these things you really have to plan out in advance because if you don't, you could cut off certain opportunities later on. But to do that, you have to be familiar with the process, the strategy, and so forth. The next thing that we will do is help you practice telling your story. Getting practice is very important. You do not want the first time you tell your story to be in front of an investigator when you're alone, unpracticed, unadvised, and in a heightened state of emotional vulnerability. You're going to be asked about your memory of certain events, and if you have trouble remembering, you want to try and sort that out before the interview so you're not contradicting yourself later on. Also, there are certain words and phrases that you don't want to use with these investigators. You may think that they are harmless, but some investigators and even decision makers will take them in a very different way. There is also certain evidence that it may not be wise to mention at this point because, number one, if you mention it, I guarantee that the investigator will ask for it. It may be beneficial for you to go ahead and submit it, or it may not be beneficial to submit it just yet or potentially at all. You may take a look at the evidence and think that it can be read one way, but an investigator or a decision maker can take a look at that same evidence and have a very different reading for it of it. Some of the evidence is good to submit, but not just yet. For example, there may be an opportunity to lure the complainant into a false sense of security, get them comfortable with making some false or at least incorrect statements on the record, and then counter by submitting evidence that directly refutes those statements. And then there are other issues with evidence as well, which we can get into. Another thing that we can do to help you prepare for the interview is to write out a series of questions that we anticipate the investigator will ask and then ask them to you. Now, it's impossible to predict every kind of question that the investigator will ask, but we can get a sense of some of the questions because we've been in many of these interviews and we know what investigators tend to ask. And of course, we'll work with you on your answers. We first want to hear how you would answer the question, what you would naturally say in response. And if there is a way to enhance your response, and usually there is, we will help you with it. Of course, we're going to be providing you with advice that is specific to your case, but we'll also provide you with general advice that's applicable to 95% of these cases. There are around 20 different tips and strategies that apply to these interviews just in general. I'm not going to go over all of those in this interview or in this video because both because it would be too long for a video and also because at some point you do have to hire us. But yeah, just know that there's a lot more advice that can be provided for this interview as well. And depending on how big the case is and how much time you have, we may need more than one meeting to prepare. I've never needed more than 2 meetings to prepare for the initial interview. But yeah, just depending on the size of the case. And at the end of the meeting, we'll send you notes from our meeting so that you can review them. Ideally, you will review them twice before the interview so that you can just have a refresher and prepare them and things like that. Now, this video has been about preparing for the interview, but there are other critical ways that we can help during the interview itself. And if you want to learn more, go to our website, title9forall.com. Take a look at our advisory service for accused students. Give us a call for a free consultation or schedule one on an advisor's calendar. We can discuss the situation, give you some advice, see if it makes sense to help you on a more ongoing basis as the advisor in your case. I can guarantee you we can offer a service at a rate that is more affordable than what a lot of other professional advisors out there charge. And as always, I hope you don't need us, but if you do, give us a call. Thank you and take care.